Quick history lesson. Centuries ago, Benjamin Franklin famously said, "In this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes." He was entirely correct, and it's intriguing that he emphasized the certainty of death. We all understand that that day will come, and our acceptance of this fact is universally profound. The concept of death has been explored in various forms of media, whether it's books discussing ways to prevent it or movies that depict it in abundance. It's a concept we inherently grasp. Recently, I delved into David Cage games and made retrospective videos on them. If you haven't seen those yet, be sure to check them out. I started with Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy, a game where the power of choice and mental health were central themes. Then I explored Heavy Rain, a dark, gritty noir crime story that also delved into paternal love and mental health. In my last video, I mentioned how David Cage and Quantic Dream signed an exclusive 3-game deal with Sony. With the success of Heavy Rain, Cage aimed to create an even bigger and better experience for his next game. He ventured into something more personal, crafting a game that makes us question the very fabric of life and death. In this game, death isn't just a narrative element, it's a central theme. He created a game about death. Welcome back to the Retro Fans Retrospective. Today we're thinking about the afterlife with Beyond Two Souls.
I was born with a strange gift. The ability to see what no human being has ever seen before. It's all mixed up in my head. The images, the sounds, the smell. I need to remember. Put things in order right up to this moment. Remember who I am. If I had to say how it all began, I might just as well start here.
If you're just discovering this channel, you're in for a treat. We got a growing catalog of captivating retrospectives that peel back the layers of gaming's most fascinating and influential titles. From unsung gems to celebrated classics, our deep dives offer fresh perspectives that'll ignite your passion for the art form. If you enjoy an engaging retrospective that blends insightful analysis with reverence for its subject matter, mash the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss out on upcoming exploration to the brilliant minds and landmark experiences that have shaped this incredible medium. Let's dive into this. If you're not fully caught up on the history of Quantic Dream, check out my Quantic Dream retrospective playlist where I cover their games and history. Moving on. Much like Heavy Rain, this game also draws inspiration from the creator's real-life experiences. What's particularly interesting is that the thought process for this game stems from something most people have experienced: loss and grief. David Cage took inspiration from a dark moment in his life where he lost someone very close to his family, an experience he described as shocking, unexpected, and brutal. According to Cage, "I lost someone I'm really close to in my family, and that was quite a shocking experience. It was totally unexpected and brutal. One second this person is there and you love her. The next second this person is gone forever." This personal tragedy led Cage to explore universal themes such as life, death, and self-acceptance. By embedding his own emotional experiences into the narrative, he aimed to create a story that would resonate deeply with players, making them feel empathy, sadness, and discomfort, emotions he believes are underexplored in video games. Cage mentioned at Comic-Con that this game's story tries to give some meaning to this strange experience that probably has no meaning. When development for the game began, Cage once again chose to cast actors for their roles. Notably, he selected Elliot Page, who at the time was presented as Ellen Page, to take the lead to portray Jodie Holmes. Willem Dafoe was chosen to play a character named Nathan Dawkins, and Kadeem Hardison was cast as Cole Freeman. When asked what led them to this role, Page stated, "It was David that did it. I was intrigued by the idea of doing something like this, but I didn't really understand what being in a video game meant. After talking with David, I was so moved and intrigued by what Quantic Dream was doing that I was completely on board. It was the combination of interactive gameplay and a story that was profound, emotional, and subversive that inspired me." To get fans excited for his next game, Cage announced Beyond Two Souls at Sony's press conference during E3 in 2012.
"I'm happy to announce Quantic Dream's next title for PlayStation 3 And this new project is called Beyond. Death is the biggest mystery of mankind. What will happen after we die is something no one knows. We'll have our hopes, our fears, our doubts, but what's on the other side remains unknown. Jodie Holmes knows a little bit more about all this than you and I. As far as she remembers, she has always felt a link with an invisible entity, some presence around her, spirit or ghost, she doesn't really know. Something living between our world and the other side. Beyond tells Jodie's story over 15 years of her life. We will see her growing, evolving, learning to live with a difference, and discovering more about what's beyond. For the first time in a video game, we will live the life of a character, go with her through happy and difficult times, and help her to become who she is. We have much to reveal about the game in the coming months, but today I want to share with you a very important element of Beyond: the name of the actress playing the role of Jodie Holmes. I was looking for a talented young actress, someone who could embody Beyond's lead role in a very unique way. And I'm proud to announce that Jodie Holmes will be played by Academy Award nominee Ellen Page. Ellen delivered a stunning performance, something I've never seen in a game before. She is the most incredible Jodie Holmes I could dream of. And I'm sure that all gamers will instantly fall in love with her. What you're going to see now is one of the first scenes of the game. And of course, everything runs in real time.
Ma'am?
Beyond will be unlike anything you have experienced before. It will be emotional, mature, and unique, but also epic, breathtaking, and spectacular. We want to create unique moments that players will remember for a long time. We invite you to a unique journey in the life of Jodie Holmes, and if you make the right decisions, maybe you will discover what lies beyond. Thank you.
The trailer for Beyond Two Souls presented at E3 was a standout moment that showcased Quantic Dream's impressive technology, particularly its facial capturing system. The trailer featured the main character, Jodie Holmes, portrayed by Elliot Page, in a tense interrogation scene with a police lieutenant named Sherman. The realism of the characters, especially Sherman's lifelike expressions and movements, highlighted the game's graphical capabilities. Jodie is unique due to her connection with a ghost named Aiden, who can possess people and manipulate objects, adding a supernatural element to the gameplay. While the trailer hinted at a narrative involving government forces attempting to control Jodie, it also raised questions about the mechanics of switching between characters and the potential challenges of gameplay execution. Despite some concerns about Aiden's powers and their implications for gameplay balance, there was confidence in Quantic Dream's ability to deliver a compelling experience, drawing on their previous successes with titles like Indigo Prophecy. Overall, the trailer set a dramatic tone and left viewers eager for more information about the game's storyline and mechanics. As development continued after the expo, the game's script grew to an impressive 2,000 pages, and according to Page, they would cover about 30 to 40 pages a day. The recording and motion capture took place in the studio in Paris, where actors wore bodysuits equipped with 90 metallic beads. The advanced motion capture technology used in Beyond Two Souls was a significant aspect of its development, contributing to the game's realistic and immersive experience. Quantic Dream employed cutting-edge techniques to capture the full range of the actors' performances, including voice acting, facial expressions, and body movements. The precision allowed for a high level of detail, capturing subtle nuances in the actors' performances, which was crucial for the game's emotional storytelling. The setup allowed them to capture every possible variation in the gameplay. David Cage emphasized the difference between filming a movie and creating a game, noting that each scene and moment had to be broken down into multiple possibilities and branches. For example, when recording dialogue, actors had to perform various responses that players could choose, such as, "Yeah, of course I would love to do this," or "No way." What set this game apart from Heavy Rain and Fahrenheit was the tragic loss of composer Nomad Corbell. Corbell, who had worked on Quantic Dream's Heavy Rain and his predecessor Fahrenheit, was unable to finish his work on Beyond Two Souls. After Corbell's death, Lorne Balfe, known for composing the score for Assassin's Creed 3, replaced him as the game's composer. In April of 2013, at the Tribeca Film Festival, David Cage showcased Beyond Two Souls in an event that highlighted the storytelling similarities between cinema and video games. The event included a 35-minute demo of the game, a new trailer, and a Q&A session with Cage and actors Elliot Page, Kadeem Hardison, and Eric Winter. Cage described the game as the story of a life, focusing on the journey of Jodie Holmes, portrayed by Page, as she experiences various moments of happiness and sadness throughout her life. As the development was wrapping up and gamers were anticipating for a new experience, a demo was released on October 1st, 2013. This demo gave players access to 2 chapters from the game. The first chapter, Jodie and Aiden, features a very young Jodie taking part in the experiment at the Department of Paranormal Activities. The second chapter, Hunted, has players helping Jodie escape from government agents. The demo was successful, with many players expressing satisfaction with the experience. Just 7 days after the demo was released on October 8, 2013, Beyond Two Souls was officially released to the world.
I was confronted with the loss of someone in my family close to me, and it was really a shocking experience. I wanted to tell a different story and not talk about death the usual way, I would say, but really deal with death as a physical reality and that can be explained.
David Cage's vision is always one that is innovative and highly challenging. So each time we start out on a project, we see those giant mountains in front of us and think, oh my God, how are we going to do that?
It took about a year to write Beyond. It was really challenging a collaboration because David is really passionate about writing and he always wants to push the envelope.
You know, the concept is huge and there's, incredible action sequences and locations all over the world, but there's also this beautiful drama within.
One of the challenges of doing this is because the player participates in the scenario, the possibilities of where the story goes is fantastic.
We ended up with 2,000 pages document and we realized we had a very big project in our hands that would be very challenging to produce.
It was a journey, right? Writing Beyond was a journey by itself.
I like being around interesting people that are really innovators and are passionate about what they're doing. And I had that sense in how they approached me and what I saw in the design and how they were talking about how they wanted to shoot.
It was strange because it felt so foreign to me, because it sort of felt like jumping off a cliff a little bit. Maybe that's just what I did. I just sort of jumped, I guess.
It was exciting. It was exciting in the sense that it was unusual for me. Everything was so unusual. I'm a true gamer. When I got the call that I was going to meet David, I was beside myself. When a project is someone's baby and they put so much time and so much heart into it, you really see it. And this is such a developed story, and this is going to make you feel and have emotion and go through a journey. So it's something I really want to get into.
I think that's the other thing that's so exciting about this game is this female protagonist, not a female protagonist who's sorry guys, has big boobs and a tank top, and is running around with a gun. And I feel grateful that I can be involved with playing this female protagonist in this video game.
It was really important amount of pages to shoot. In films, usually they shoot about 2 to 3 minutes a day. We had to shoot above 20 minutes.
It's been shockingly emotional. You just don't stop. You just go and go and go and go. I've kind of really enjoyed that experience. It's been weirdly kind of freeing.
You walk by the performance capture space, and it looks so tiny. And you look at that and you say, my God, all that stuff happened in that space today. When I say happened, it happened in your imagination and it happened in your intention. But it's a powerful feeling.
It's so amazing that this is what I'm getting to do. I can't sleep at night. I go home and I'm just so excited that I'm coming back tomorrow.
There's an aspect of motion capture that really skips to the chase and gets down to something very basic about performing.
Go back to bed.
With Alan and Willem, it's really like driving a Ferrari in a way. You need to be very precise as the pilot, because whatever you ask the car to do, you will get it. But because they're so talented, they will give you something that will be fully consistent with the character and that will really bring something that you didn't think of.
The pleasure for me as an actor is not interpreting something. It really is serving someone's vision and then making it my vision. And David, is pretty inspiring.
David's awesome to work for. I don't think I realized when I signed up for it just like how much of an incredible experience this was going to be as an actor. I mean, I really have nothing other than unbelievable respect for what he's doing, and just for whatever reason, totally just trust him, and just every day, just sort of go for it.
Both Alan and Willem came on set with a lot of respect for the project. They really wanted to do the best possible job they could just to serve the project and serve the vision, and I think it's going to make the game much better.
Here's a quick spoiler alert, as I'm about to tell the story behind Beyond Two Souls. If you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance to the gameplay overview section, as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. Before I start, quick heads up, unlike Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls does not have a concrete true plot, so I will do my best to tell the story of how I played it. Also, the game revolves around shattered memories and operates outside of chronological order. Let's start. The game opens up with Jodie Holmes appearing lost in her own memories, trying to piece them together. Her first memory takes her back to age 23 at the Kyle County Sheriff Office. In the office, Jodie is being questioned by Lieutenant Jay Sherman. As he asks her questions, she experiences flashbacks of events, dogs chasing her in the forest, and a homeless man. Sherman implores her to help him understand, explaining that he found her on the side of a road. She remains quiet. He then notices an old scar on the back of her head and becomes concerned. Suddenly, a coffee mug on the table flies off and shatters against the wall. The scene then cuts to Nathan in the back of a town car, arguing with someone on the phone. He insists that they have no idea what they're dealing with and them to wait for him to arrive. The person on the other end hangs up, prompting Nathan to scorn them and call them fools. Back at the county sheriff's office, Jodie is alone in Lieutenant Sherman's office. Aiden makes a distinct noise and Jodie responds, acknowledging that she knows they're coming. A SWAT team led by Commander T. Clifford storms the building. Clifford demands to know where the girl Sherman picked up is. Sherman indicates the closed door to his office. Clifford suddenly orders his men to position around the door and motions for Sherman to be quiet and open it. Reluctantly, Sherman complies. Sometime later, Nathan arrives at the sheriff's office and finds the whole building in disarray. The only person left alive is Lieutenant Sherman, presumably because he was kind to Jodie. Jodie is nowhere to be seen.
Jodie, what have you done?
After that memory, Jodie's timeline shifts back to when she was 9 years old at the Department of Paranormal Activities, or DPA for short. Jodie is in her room playing with dolls when Cole walks in. Reluctant to interrupt her, he gently tells her it's time and leads her out of the room. They walk down the hallways until they reach another room where Nathan is waiting. He greets her and asks how she's been. She's polite but distant. Once she sits down, Cole fits a device on her head, likely to record brainwaves. He calls her a princess and the device is a crown. Nathan and Cole leave to watch her from an adjoining room through a one-way glass. The room is small and filled with computers and monitors. Another technician, Greg, is with them. Cole performs a few tests to ensure Jodie can hear them correctly before starting the experiment. He explains that a woman named Kathleen is in a room directly opposite Jodie, holding 5 cards. Jodie must use Aiden to see the cards and point to the corresponding one printed on the table. After successfully pointing to 3 cards, Cole moves on. He explains that there are building blocks on Kathleen's table and asks Jody if she can knock them over. After doing so, he encourages her to move any of the objects in the room. However, after seeing Aiden cause minor chaos within the room, Kathleen becomes scared. Cole then declares the experiment over. Nathan bursts into Jody's room to comfort her as she silently cries. He reassures her that the ordeal is over and that she will be fine. She disagrees, saying it will never be over. In the other room, Greg manages to open Kathleen's door and she sobs and slides on the floor.
Oh, Jody. It's over, Jody. It's over. It's over.
It will never be over.
The story then jumps to Jody at age 20 at the embassy in Saudi Arabia, where she's completing her first field assignment for the CIA. Jody and Ryan enter the embassy guest room. She is nervous and uncomfortable with the situation, asking about the guest and complaining about her outfit, a long red gown. When Ryan leaves to shake some hands, Jody slips into the ladies' room to begin her assignment. She locks herself in one of the cubicles and uses Aiden to help retrieve documents from Sheikh Ahmad's office in the main office. As Aiden finds the documents, Jody instructs him not to move so she can note down what she sees. She jots down the notes in a refill pad, tears off a page and throws on the ground. She gets a severe nosebleed and complains that it hurts like hell when Aiden is far away. She is then disturbed by a male guard knocking on the cubicle door. Fortunately, a waitress who works with her and Ryan intervenes, throwing the man out of the restroom and coming to Jody's aid. The waitress collects the notes Jody wrote down, apologizing for not being able to help further, and leaves. Jody washes the blood off her face and barely makes it back to Ryan. She rejects his help, telling him not to touch her, and they leave in a hurry.
Jody, all right?
Don't touch me! I want to go now.
Right. Yeah, we're leaving.
Next, we jump to a 14-year-old Jody who was dropped off at a birthday party for the daughter of a co-worker in the lab. Jody is hesitant and self-conscious, but Nathan encourages her, giving her a book of poetry as a birthday present before driving away. As soon as adult supervision leaves the house, the kids break out alcohol and marijuana. Jody has the option to drink beer and smoke weed to try to fit in. She can dance with Matt and even have her first kiss. They then ask Jody questions, and if she tells the truth about her life, the kids will scoff at her. Pressure into proving it, she does so, frightening the others. Kristen says it's time to eat cake and opens her presents. When Kirsten opens Jody's present, an old book of Edgar Allan Poe poems, she becomes irate and mocks Jody. Kirsten encourages the teenager to turn on Jody, and they lock her in a cupboard under the staircase, pulling a Harry Potter moment. With Aiden's help, Jody can either escape and leave or escape and get revenge. If she chooses revenge, Aiden frightens and harms the teens, knocking them unconscious with items and furniture in the living room. An upset Jody leaves the house and meets Kirsten's mother. Nathan then takes a distressed Jody back to the DPA facility.
God, what happened? She tried to kill us. She's the devil. She's the devil.
Come on, Jody. Let's go home.
After that disastrous birthday party, we return to the DPA facility where a 9-year-old Jody is meeting Nathan for the first time. Jody sits alone in the waiting room. Aiden manipulates a chair to get her attention. She scolds him, blaming him for getting her in trouble. Her foster mother, Susan, then walks in, explaining that she's found someone to replace Dr. Matthews. When Jody doesn't move, Susan coaxes her. and Jody eventually enters the office. Inside, she meets Nathan Dawkins, who describes himself as someone who studies strange events. It's apparent Susan has told him about Aiden, and she asks about his origins and who exactly he is to Jody. According to Jody, non-committal gestures, Aiden has been with her since she was born, but he is not a wayward spirit. Nathan asks Jody if she could draw Aiden, and she agrees. Aiden is portrayed as a master of scribbles attached to a stick figure with an external cord. Nathan asks if he's in the room with them and if he could do something. Aiden complies, and Nathan asks if Jody can actually tell him what to do. She responds negatively, saying no one can order Aiden to do anything he doesn't wish to do. She admits to being scared of him most times, as he becomes angry with being trapped within her. She wishes for a normal life and doesn't want him to stay either. Nathan points to shallow scratches on her arm and asks if Aiden did that to her. Jody replies that it wasn't Aiden, it was the monsters. Nathan leans back in his chair, disturbed.
You tell him what to do, and it happens.
I don't tell Aiden what to do. No one does. He's like a lion in a cage. We're tied together. He can't go away. That makes him really angry. It's not my fault. I want him to leave too. It can be really scary sometimes.
Did he do that to you?
No. That was the monsters.
From here, we jump to Jody's late teenage years, where she's being trained by the CIA. Jody, accompanied by Ryan, arrives at Camp Perry, where she will remain there for 3 years. What follows is a short montage of Jody's training regimen, various physical exercises, intellectual challenges, and training specifically tailored to Aiden. One exercise involves combat training with Vince. If Jody gets hit, Aiden will attack Vince, and Jody will have to tell him to stop. The final test is a culmination of everything Jody has learned. She must sneak past armed CIA operatives and capture a flag at the end of the course. As she makes her way through, she is suddenly stopped by Ryan, who holds a gun to her head and admonishes her, saying if this was real, she'd be dead already. She retaliates, saying if this was real, he wouldn't be able to open his mouth. The camera then pans to an operative possessed by Aiden, pointing his rifle at Ryan. Ryan reluctantly relents, congratulating Jody for successfully passing her training and becoming a full-fledged CIA agent. Vince and Nick praise her for a job well done, while Ryan walks away, muttering to himself.
Not bad, Jody. If this wasn't an exercise, you'd be dead by now.
If this wasn't an exercise, you wouldn't even be able to open your big mouth, Ryan.
Congratulations, Operative Holmes. You made it. Welcome to the agency.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Jody. Welcome to the agency.
Looks like you made it,
Jody. Congratulations.
The story then migrates to Jody being on the run from the CIA at age 23. The chapter opens with Jody sleeping on a train while Aiden watches over her. The train arrives at a station where the police are searching for a wanted person, Jody. Aiden awakens her before the police board the train. Realizing the danger, Jody tries to leave, but the police notice her and she starts to run. Jody dodges obstacles and avoids getting caught. As she passes windows that could be potential escape routes, she runs into a policeman and defends herself. After the confrontation, the other officers aim their guns and tell her to freeze. Jody runs into the bathroom just before they can shoot. She asks Aiden for help and reveals an exit on the roof. She climbs out and soon finds herself atop of the train, fighting off more policemen. Surrounded, Jody jumps off the train using Aiden's powers to protect her.
We need backup! She's getting away!
Once she lands, Jody runs away from the train with the police still in pursuit. Eventually, police dogs attack her, and she has to fight them off. Afterward, she climbs up some rocks and hears police approaching. Leaning against the rocks to stay out of sight, Jody notices the police on the road and spots a motorbike. Aiden can possess one of the policemen to drive the car, repeatedly slamming to distract the officers. Taking advantage of the chaos, Jody jumps onto the motorbike and drives away, with the helicopter still following her. As she speeds down the street, she eventually reaches a bridge where police armed with guns block her path. Jody drives straight through, using Aiden to shield her, knocking over police cars and making her way towards Bakertown as Commander T. Clifford instructs the SWAT team to hold their fire.
Hold your fire! I said hold your fire!
This is Roadblock Tango. We missed her. I repeat, we missed her. She's headed for Bakertown.
Jody stops near a theater and the police quickly arrive. Aiden can intervene in several ways. He can make a SWAT member jump off the roof, possess another SWAT member in a car and crash into a gun store, causing an explosion, or take control of a member to shoot several others. Later, Aiden possesses a member in the helicopter, causing it to crash and explode. Jody walks out of the theater and confronts Clifford, warning him to tell the others to leave her alone or she'll delete everyone.
Tell them to leave me the fuck alone, because next time, I'll kill everyone. Come on, Aiden. I think they get the message.
After the intense action sequence, the story shifts back to 9-year-old Jody at home before her time in the DPA. One night, Jody wakes up screaming for her mother as lights flicker and objects move in her room. The next day, Jody wishes she didn't have to constantly deal with Aiden's presence, while her parents struggle to cope with the strange occurrences around her. Aiden is occasionally helpful, such as when he helps Jody sneak a cookie from the fridge while her mother's distracted. Later, Jody's mother asks her to fetch cooking oil from the dark and foreboding garage. Jody feels like something is watching her, and if she takes too long, the door suddenly shuts, causing her to scream for her mother, who comes to her rescue. Her mother then admits that even adults can get scared and imagine things. She suggests Jody go outside and play in the snow to calm down. Jody, feeling cold and bored, notices some kids playing outside the fence. Although she's supposed to stay in the yard, Aiden blasts a part of the fence away so she can join them. They engage in a snowball fight until one boy starts rubbing snow on Jody's face, making it hard for her to breathe. Aiden, protective of Jody, angrily chokes the boy, nearly killing him and causing the other kids to think Jody is a witch. Jody's father rushes out, drags her inside, and yells at her for leaving the yard. When Jody tries to explain that Aiden was defending her, her father doesn't believe her and is about to slap her. Aiden reacts aggressively, causing the house objects to move before Jody is sent to her room.
What happened? What were you doing in the street? You know you're not allowed to leave the yard.
Saw the other kids playing it. I just wanted to have some fun.
What did you do to that boy?
Philip.
I didn't do anything. Aiden did it. He was trying to defend me. He thought...
I'm sick and tired of your stories. Jody, this time you're really gonna get it. And now! You go to your room. Now!
As Jody tries to sleep, Aiden attempts to communicate with her, but she yells at him to go away, blaming him for her parents' growing hatred. Upset, Aiden heads downstairs and overhears a heated argument between the parents about Jody's condition. Her mother is protective, but her father is fearful that Jody's devil powers might one day turn against them, revealing that they have been fostering her since she was a baby. Back in her room, Jody tries to reassure herself and Aiden that nothing will happen to them, but soon, objects in her room start moving and the lights flicker. Downstairs, her parents hear the screams and rush upstairs to find Jody cowering in a corner, covered in scratches and wounds.
You told me monsters didn't exist. You were wrong, Mommy. You were wrong.
The scene shifts to Jody at age 16. Nathan wakes her in the middle of the night and they head to his car. He explains that scientists at the DPA have accidentally opened a portal to the Infraworld, and they need her to close it, though he's clearly reluctant. When they arrive at the DPA facility, it's a chaotic scene with policemen, paramedics, firemen, and injured personnel everywhere. Nathan offers Jodie a chance to go home, but she insists that she must go through with it. As she approaches the building, Cole argues with Nathan, questioning whether they should really be sending Jodie in. Nathan counters, saying that she's the only one capable of closing the rift. Injured scientists are being attacked too by paramedics around the front entrance. Nathan warns Jodie that they have no idea what to expect from the Infraworld, and that the entities there are unlike Iden, with very little known about them.
The condenser's in the lower basement. You need to find the control room. That's all they could tell me. Jodie, the entities around the rift, they're not like Iden. They're from the depths of the other side. We know almost nothing about them.
I've been living with an entity that I know nothing about since the day I was born. I get it. Don't worry. I don't plan on dying today.
About them. Upon entering the building, Jodie finds blood splatters on the floor and walls, with the hallway showing signs of damage from some sort of creature. As she tries to enter an elevator at the end of the hall, she notices that something is blocking the doors on the ground floor. Iden ventures down the elevator shaft and pushes a suitcase away from the stuck doors, allowing Jodie access. Inside the elevator, Jodie discovers a dead scientist, which causes her to panic and fall over in horror. After taking a moment to regain her composure, she descends to the 4th floor. There, she encounters a wall of fire with the dead fireman lying next to it. By examining the fireman's body, Jodie learns that a fire extinguisher is on the other side of the flames. Iden retrieves the extinguisher through the fire, enabling Jodie to extinguish the flames. In the next room, Jodie finds a scientist sitting in a chair who, upon interaction, is possessed by an entity before collapsing. She also comes across a frightened scientist hiding in the corner. He tells Jodie about the entities and appears visibly shaken. Jodie advises him to head to the elevator for safety. As he makes his way to the elevator, he becomes possessed by one of the entities and starts attacking Jodie. After subduing him, Jodie moves on to another room. In the next room, Jodie is attacked by various pieces of furniture and equipment controlled by the entities, but manages to fend them off. She then enters an icy hallway and proceeds to the only accessible room on her right. At the back of this room, she retrieves a pass card from a dead body. Suddenly, all the dead bodies in the hallway and the room begin to rise and attack her. Jodie flees and encounters a locked door. While she figures out how to open it, Iden eliminates the zombies before they can reach her. Once the immediate threat is dealt with, a cinematic sequence plays, closing off the icy hallway and revealing an answer room leading to the final chamber. Upon entering this final room, Jodie finds a switch on the console under the window meant to close the portal. She activates it, but nothing happens. She notices another console outside the control room near the portal itself. As Jodie navigates a narrow path and climbs a ladder to reach the switch, Iden protects her from the attacking entities. Jodie finally activates the switch at the top, which causes the portal to pull the entities back into the rift and destroy the condenser, keeping the rift open. The force of the portal nearly pulls Jodie in, and she is dazed by the ensuing blast. When she regains her senses, she fears that Iden might have been sucked into the rift as well. Desperately, she calls out for Iden, and he responds, reassuring her of his presence. She scolds him for scaring her. Outside the building, Nathan embraces Jodie, expressing regret for sending her in. Jodie hugs him back, warning that they should never build another portal, or the next time there might be nothing left. Nathan, horrified, re-embraces her.
Jodie. Oh, I should have never sent you in there. It's my fault. It's all my fault.
my God. I was so afraid I lost you.
Don't let them ever do that again. If they open a passage, there'll be nothing left.
At 23 years old, Jody is physically and emotionally exhausted from her escape from the CIA. She makes a final call to Nathan expressing her weariness and the return of the entities, before hanging up and collapsing near an alley. Aiden tries to protect the unconscious Jody from the entities and attracts attention from a homeless man who carries her to his makeshift home under a bridge, oblivious to Aiden or the entities. When Jody wakes up, she discovers that she has been out for 2 days and that Stan, the homeless man, has been caring for her. Stan, who lost his wife to cancer, shows empathy towards Jody. During their conversation, she learns about the others living with Stan: Tuesday, a pregnant girl; Jimmy, a drug addict; and Walter, an alcoholic and former teacher. Stan takes Jody outside and mentions that they need more food. He offers to show her how to survive on the street, and she agrees to follow him into town. Stan begins to panhandle, asking for $5 for a hot meal. Complaining about the cold and hunger, Jody eventually decides to help. She has various options to get money, but the most lucrative method involves using another homeless man's guitar to beg. Jody earns $15. After giving some of the money to the man whose guitar she used, she returns to Stan.
Thanks. We've got enough. Let's go see how Stan's doing. How's it going?
Not great. You? Holy sh! Jody, where did you get all that cash?
I found it. There was a guy with a guitar, and I play guitar. I mean, I made a few bucks.
Oh wow, that's something. That's really something. Stay right here. I'm gonna go get us some food.
Stan heads across the street to the supermarket, asking Jody to wait for him. However, he is soon confronted by a group of thugs armed with a bat and a camcorder. They start to beat Stan, mocking him and recording the assault. Jody can choose to intervene and do nothing. If she decides to fight, the leader of the thugs will insult her and try to attack. If Jody wins, she successfully scares them off, but the leader ominously remarks that they'll meet again. Jody apologizes to Stan, who is more concerned about her well-being than his own injuries. They return to the camp where Walter expresses worry over Stan's injuries, but Stan downplays it as a minor altercation, grateful for Jody's intervention. Stan praises her and tells the others about her ability to handle herself. As they sit together and eat the food Stan brought from the market, Jody finishes her meal and has the option to perform miracles for Tuesday, Jimmy, and Stan. She can use Ian to check on the state of Tuesday's baby, heal Jimmy, and act as a conduit for Stan's late wife, Nancy, to provide him with comfort. After these acts of kindness, the group retires to bed for the night.
Nancy? Nancy, can't be you.
It is me, my love. I never left. I've been here beside you all this time.
Oh my God.
Breaks my heart to see you so lost, so desperate.
I'm empty without you, my love. I'm so empty.
Stop living in the past, Stan. Nothing's gonna change what we had together. But now you have to start a new life. Go back to work. Fall in love. Just be happy again. For me, Stan. Do it for me.
God, I miss you. God help me, I miss you.
It's a miracle. Goddamn miracle.
Jody? Thanks.
Jody wakes up to Tuesday's screams and finds the other gathered around her. Stan explains that Tuesday's experiencing premature labor. Walter insists on taking her to the hospital, but Tuesday refuses, fearing they'll take her baby away. Walter urges her to reconsider, as they lack the resources for a safe delivery. Taking charge, Stan instructs Jimmy to break into an abandoned building nearby. He then takes Jody to the supermarket, admitting that he hadn't prepared a plan. Jody uses Aiden to unlock the doors, and Stan soon returns with the necessary supplies. Jimmy arrives with the news that Tuesday's water has broken. The three hurry to the abandoned building where Walter and Tuesday are waiting. Tuesday insists that the men leave, preferring not to have them witness her in such distress. Jody, admitting she's never assisted Burke before, follows Tuesday's instruction to remove her parka and Tuesday's pants. Taking on the role of a midwife, Jody helps with the delivery. After a tense moment, the baby crowns and with a final push is born into Jody's arms. She then cuts the umbilical cord, wraps the newborn in a blanket, and hands her to Tuesday. Jody then opens the door for the others who crowd around to the baby. Tuesday announces the baby is a girl, naming her Zoe, and thanks Jody for her help. Stan calls Jody their miracle and embraces her warmly.
Wow. It's so tiny.
It's a girl. Her name's Zoe.
Shit, man. She's goddamn amazing.
Hey, watch your language, Walter. She understands everything you say.
She's more than amazing. She's magnificent.
I couldn't have done it without you guys. And Jody.
You're a miracle, Jody. Our miracle.
Later, Jody wakes to find the building engulfed in flames and quickly moves to evacuate everyone. She leads the group out to safety but realizes she needs to find her own way out. After ensuring everyone is safely outside, Jody makes a daring jump from the building. As she lands in the snow, the street thugs from earlier return, revealing themselves as the arsonists. They knock Stan and Jody to the ground and deliver a final blow to Jody's head. The thugs retreat, leaving Jody bleeding and unconscious in the snow.
I don't know how you did that, but it was incredible.
Oh, Zoe. How's Zoe? Good. She's good.
How did the damn fire start?
Spectacular, huh, guys? A little gas and a lighter, and the roaches pour out of the nest. Fucking hate happy endings. Be seeing you again, bitch.
Hey. Hey, leave her alone!
Calm down, cockroaches. Such a hero now, are you?
No!
Did you get it, Ed?
Yeah, but it's in the can!
All right, come on, man, let's go.
Bastards!
She's not breathing. She's not breathing!
Oh my God! Oxygen! We need oxygen! We're losing her.
Jody, no! Not like this.
Please don't leave us, Jody. Don't leave us.
While in a coma, Jody finds herself trapped in a dark, formless realm, swirling through past memories and future visions. She experiences these memories through disoriented shapes and flickering television screens. Aiden eventually pulls her back into the waking world, where she awakens in a hospital after being unconscious for at least 3 months. As she moves around the hospital room, Jody touches various objects, each triggering memories of her friends. Tuesday visits regularly with Zoe, telling Jody about her life, revealing that her real name is Eliza. Stan brings a newspaper clipping showing that the thugs who attacked them have been arrested and tells her that he found a job and rented an apartment. Jimmy, now sober, places a picture of himself and the others on Jody's bedside table. When Jody exits her room, she sees 2 men at the reception desk asking about her. Recognizing them as CIA agents, she quickly evades them by jumping out of her window. After an uncertain amount of time, she is picked up by Lieutenant Jay Sherman, who's patrolling the road, tying back to the beginning of the game.
Man? Is everything all right? Man?
The chapter begins with the 9-year-old Jody experiencing her first night at the DPA facility. Susan and Philip Holmes, Jody's foster parents, have just left her in the care of Nathan Dawkins and Cole Freeman, who are here to investigate the disturbances that have been troubling her. Philip is distant, while Susan, though clearly upset, bids Jody a tender goodbye. After they leave, Jody changes into her pajamas and settles into bed with her flashlight and her stuffed animal, Bunny. Struggling to fall asleep, she asks Aiden for a story. In response, Aiden uses the flashlight to create shadow puppets on the ceiling, which soon helps Jody drift off. However, her peaceful sleep is interrupted when the lights begin to flicker and the monstrous creatures drag her from her bed, attacking her. Cole, who was asleep behind a one-way mirror, is unaware of the chaos unfolding. Aiden bravely defends Jody, keeping the creatures at bay until Cole and Nathan burst into the room. They find Jody scratched and bruised, with the furniture in disarray. Nathan urgently orders Cole to fetch a doctor to tend to Jody's injuries. The chapter concludes with Nathan embracing Jody, who, despite her fear, reassures him that everything will be fine now, as Aiden is no longer afraid of the monsters.
Get a doctor! Hurry!
It's okay. It'll be alright now. Aiden isn't scared of them anymore.
The scene shifts to a 16-year-old Jody who was in the lab arguing with Nathan and Cole about leaving the facility. Nathan insists that she is different and needs to stay, while Cole, who is on guard duty, echoes his reluctance. Jody, desperate to leave, continues to plead with Cole, but he repeatedly denies her request. As Nathan leaves and Cole stands guard, Jody decides to take matters into her own hands. With Aiden's help, she starts causing a ruckus in the apartment, breaking things to draw Cole's attention. Once Cole is sufficiently distracted, Aiden takes control and persuades Cole to open the door and let Jody go. Jody, now followed by Aiden-possessed Cole, makes her way to the door leading outside. When the guard intercepts her, Aiden uses Cole to talk his way past the guard, ensuring Jody safe passage to the parking lot. Jody finds a hiding place in Cole's car and they manage to drive out of the DPA facility. As they reach a point down the road from the lab, Jodie tells Aiden to leave Cole somewhere safe while she continues on her own.
You'll forgive me, right? I'll be back soon. And don't worry, I'll be fine. Okay, Aiden, take him into the forest. Make sure he's safe.
Jodie arrives at the Red House bar, which is quiet except for the bartender Sam, 2 men playing pool, and 2 men sitting at the bar, Earl and Frank. After Jodie sits at the table, Sam approaches her and asks how old she is. Jodie claims to be 21 and assures him that she just wants a lemonade. Sam, though skeptical, serves her the drink. As the 2 men at the pool table eventually leave, Jodie has several options for the passing of time. If she interacts with the arcade machine, the pinball machine, or the jukebox, she can enjoy these distractions until Earl stands up and invites her to play a game. Regardless of whether she accepts or refuses, Jodie will end up playing with Earl. If she chooses to interact with the pool table instead, Earl will offer to be her partner. Jodie can accept or refuse, but Earl would insist on playing regardless of her response. During the game, Earl begins to subtly harass Jodie, touching her inappropriately. As the situation escalates, Jodie becomes increasingly uncomfortable. Earl, with Frank's assistance, forces Jodie onto the pool table and attempts to assault her. At this crucial moment, Aiden intervenes violently. He causes chaos in the bar, making Earl and Frank back off. The player has several options and choices on how to handle the situation. They can delete the guys, scare them, or wait. After the chosen action, a DPA security guard arrives at the bar along with Cole and Nathan. They are horrified by the scene, finding Jodie in distress. Nathan approaches Jodie, offering her comfort with a hug as she breaks down in tears.
Jodie! My God. Are you all right? Good God, what happened?
I just wanted to go out. Just be like everyone else for once.
No. It's okay. It's okay.
The story jumps back to a young Jodie. In Jodie's apartment at the DPA, a tense atmosphere fills the room as her foster parents Philip and Susan visit her, along with Cole and Nathan. Jodie sits on the couch and her demeanor is despondent and withdrawn. Philip approaches her with a blunt and detached tone, informing her that he and Susan are being transferred to another base. Jodie remains unresponsive to Philip's announcement. Philip turns to Susan, promising Jodie that after a while she will be able to join them in their new home. Susan, visibly distressed, kneels beside Jodie, trying to offer comfort. She tells Jodie to be brave and assures her that everything will work out in the end. Susan embraces Jodie, tears in her eyes as she struggles to hold back her own emotions. Philip, impatient and indifferent, urges Susan to hurry. Susan reluctantly pulls away and starts to leave, casting a final sorrowful glance at Jodie. As Philip follows, Aiden seizes the moment to act. With a surge of anger, he begins to choke Philip. Philip drops to his knees, gasping for breath. Susan, panicked and desperate, pleads for someone to intervene. Nathan, realizing the severity of the situation, tries to get Jodie to stop Aiden's attack. For a moment, Jodie watches in silence. Her expression is a mix of detachment and curiosity. Nathan's heartfelt plea reaches Jodie, breaking through her numbness. She urgently begs Aiden to stop, and Aiden, responding to her plea, immediately releases Philip. Philip, now gasping and enraged, calls Jodie a monster before fleeing from the apartment. Susan, still terrified, leaves with a final fearful glance at Jodie. The room falls silent, leaving Jodie and Nathan amidst the aftermath of the chaotic scene.
He tried to kill me! Oh my God, she's evil! You're a monster! Do you hear me? A monster!
Oh my God. Jodie.
Jodie, I know how you feel, but you made the right decision.
Jody, now 23 years old, trudges along a desolate road in the Navajo region. Frustrated and exhausted, she argues with Aiden, her anger palpable. As she turns to her right, she spots a small isolated farmhouse in the distance. Driven by a sense of desperation, Jody approaches the farmhouse and knocks on the door. After a moment, a young man opens the door. Jody, pleading for shelter as dusk approaches, is initially turned away. The young man Jay tells her that they cannot offer her a place to stay. Just then, an older man approaches from behind Jay and speaks to him in Navajo. The older man, Paul, invites Jody to the farmhouse, offering her refuge for the night. Inside the simple rustic farmhouse, Paul introduces himself, his sons Jay and Corey, and his mother, Shimasani. Paul explains that Shimasani has not spoken in years. Despite the warm welcome, an air of unease hangs over the dinner table. As they sit down for a modest meal, Paul initiates a conversation, asking Jody about her travels in the remote desert. Jody learns that the family is Dene, and their ranch is the last of a once thriving community. They engage in small talk about ranching and the challenges of living in such isolation. The peaceful atmosphere is abruptly interrupted when the family's dog begins to bark and the wind picks up, whistling fiercely. The sudden change in ambiance causes everyone to fall silent. Paul quickly suggests that it's time for bed. Jay leads Jody to a small, sparsely furnished room and instructs her to lock the door and not to come out. In her room, Jody notices a strange line of ash below the window. She undresses and washes up, feeling increasingly unsettled. Exhausted, she falls asleep. She is jolted awake from a vivid and disturbing dream. With Aiden's help, she unlocks the door and ventures into the hallway. As she opens the front door of the farmhouse, a ghostly specter materializes before her, staring at her and hiding the sense of foreboding.
What are you doing here? I told you to stay in your room.
What the hell was that?
Go back to bed. You can leave in the morning.
Jody awakens to a new day. After sharing a cup of coffee with Paul, she prepares to leave the farmhouse. Paul, however, offers her a job in exchange for room and board, which Jody eagerly accepts. Over the following days, Jody immerses herself in the daily routine of the ranch, slowly earning the family's trust and respect. As Jody settles into her new role, she learns of a terrifying enemy known as Yatoshi. Paul explains that the malevolent force was summoned by Shimasani's ancestors to drive away the soldiers who had invaded their land. However, the plan went awry, and Yatoshi developed an uncontrollable hunger for death and destruction. The entity has since plagued Paul's family, causing them immense suffering. One fateful day, Jody returns to the farmhouse to find Yatoshi attacking in broad daylight. The scene is chaotic. Jay and Corey were seen desperately trying to tend to a wounded Paul. Jody, guided by her determination to help, uses Aiden to heal Paul before joining the fight against Yatoshi. With Aiden's assistance and the support of Shimasani and the spirits of the ancestors, Jody engages in a fierce battle with the entity. She manages to open a rift and force Yatoshi back into its origin, banishing it from their world. However, the battle takes a tragic toll as Shimasani dies as a result of the confrontation. The family, grieving yet grateful, holds a solemn ceremony in honor of Shimasani's memory. They bury her with respect and sorrow. Before leaving the sacred area, Jody explores a small cave nearby. Inside, she discovers ancient wall paintings depicting entities and humans connected to one through an ethereal cord, hinting at a deeper connection between humans and the supernatural. Back at the ranch, Paul, Jay, and Corey present Jody with a restored motorcycle as a token of their gratitude and to aid her in her journey. Jody shares a heartfelt goodbye with the family, hugging Corey and choosing to either hug or kiss Jay, depending on her preference. She expresses her deep thanks for their hospitality and their help provided. With the final wave, Jody mounts the motorcycle and rides off into the distance, ready to continue her journey. jump back 6 years to when Jodie is 17 years old, accompanied by Nathan and Cole. She undergoes another round of testing, focusing on her channeling abilities with Aiden's assistance. On the table before her are 3 objects: a coin, a photo of an elderly woman, and a music box. Jodie's attention is drawn to the music box. As she interacts with it, she experiences a vivid memory of a girl receiving the box as a gift. Nathan, observing the reaction, comments about his late daughter, Laura, hinting at a personal connection to the memory. Before the session can continue, Cole's phone rings. He answers and speaks briefly with Ryan Clayton. Nathan, upon hearing this, excuses himself from the room to take the call outside.
Listen, I never got around to telling her I need more time.
No. Professor Dawkins, she needs to come with me today. I have my orders.
Christ, she's only a child. My assistant and I are the only family she's got. She doesn't have any idea what's out there.
Look, Dawkins, I see your side of it. All right, I do. But orders are orders, right? You gonna bring her to me, or do I have to go and get her?
Eventually, Jodie is summoned to meet with Nathan, Cole, and the newcomer. She is formally introduced to Ryan Clayton, a CIA agent who has come to take her away. Clayton informs her that she will be enrolled in a 3-year training program at the Paranormal Activity Department of the agency. Despite Jodie's protests, she is compelled to go with them. Jodie is given one last chance to return to her room and pack her belongings. Once she finishes, she experiences a heartfelt farewell between Cole and Nathan, with Clayton waiting impatiently nearby. Jodie, feeling despondent, leaves with Clayton.
Don't worry. I'm sure you'll be great. Dave, I'm gonna miss the hell out of you, princess.
Come and see you as soon as I can. I'll never let you down. You know that, don't you? I'll always be there for you.
Time to go.
As we move on to a 22-year-old Jodie who is in her apartment when she receives a phone call from Ryan, he asks if she saw this email about going to a fancy restaurant. Jodie realizes that Ryan's email was the reason Aiden had destroyed her computer earlier in the week. Apologizing for not having read it, she learns that it's too late for the restaurant, but Ryan agrees to reschedule for another night. Quickly, Jodie invites him over to a place offering to cook instead. Ryan accepts the invitation.
Shit, I'm so sorry. Why don't you just come over here for dinner tonight? I mean, you wanted to see my apartment anyway, so...
Sure, but
How about around 8?
Okay. Yeah, I'll bring a kick-ass bottle of wine. See you later.
As Jodie prepares for the evening, Aiden tries to sabotage her efforts at every turn. When the doorbell rings, Jodie panics, thinking Ryan has arrived early. She opens the door to find no one there. Aiden then begins stacking chairs onto the table in a chaotic manner and stops the living room clock. If Jodie decides to take a shower, Aiden writes, "You don't need him, you have me," on the fog mirror. Jodie responds by telling Aiden that he doesn't understand and wipes the message away. Ryan soon arrives with a bottle of wine. Jodie greets him and leads him to the hallway room while she heads to the kitchen for a corkscrew. As she prepares, Aiden flings open the cupboard's oven and the fridge in an attempt to disrupt her, but she manages to close all of them and return to Ryan with a wine glass. The two sit on the couch sipping wine and engaging in conversation, as Aiden, the player, will have several opportunities to derail the date, causing awkward pauses and making Ryan uncomfortable. If Jody excuses herself to check on the food, she will confront Aiden angrily and tell him to leave.
Jody, I think there's something wrong with Aiden.
Give me a second. I'm fed up with you and your goddamn jealousy. So why don't you just go back to whatever ethereal fucking place you came from and let me get on with my life? Get out of here. Do you fucking hear me? Get the fuck out!
The two will sit down and eat at the table. If everything goes well, Ryan will confess his love to Jody. At this point, you can choose whether to kiss him or leave. If you choose to kiss him, the scene will transition to Jody's bedroom. If Jody was not assaulted in an earlier episode, the love scene continues as a tender moment between the two. However, if Jody was assaulted, Aiden's presence will trigger a flashback and a panic attack, causing Jody to push Ryan away as she struggles with her trauma.
Stop. Stop.
Jody, what's the matter?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. There's some things that I can't forget.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Listen, I better go.
At 9 years old, Jody is seen watching a cartoon on a TV beginning to fall asleep. Bored, she gets up and asks Nathan if they can leave. Nathan is surprised by how late it is, apologizes for being too absorbed in his work to notice. He offers to read her a bedtime story, acknowledging that she's had a long day. Jody eagerly agrees, and Nathan tells her he left the book in the other room. He asks her to fetch it while he finishes up. Jody walks through an open doorway behind Cole and Nathan into a small storage room. As she nears the desk, the soul light starts to flicker. Assuming it's Aiden's doing, she admonishes him. The pages of the book flip open by themselves, making Jody nervous. Book in hand, she starts to head back, but is startled by a sudden apparition of a blood-soaked girl. Behind her, another woman is also covered in blood, appears briefly before vanishing, leaving Jody frightened and confused. She hands the book to Nathan, who, along with Cole sitting beside him, seems unaware of anything unusual. As she turns, she notices the two women appearing silently behind Nathan. Nathan frowns, concerned, and asks if Jody is alright, noting that she looks pale. Cole brushes it off as tiredness and suggests that they get to bed, although Nathan is not entirely convinced. As he guides her out of the room, their departure is interrupted when Cole answers the phone and tells Nathan it's for him. Nathan takes the phone from Cole, listening in silence as his expression changes to one of horror. Cole, noticing Nathan's distress, calls out to him. Nathan places the handset back into his cradle, visibly shaken. Cole informs Nathan that he needs to stay put while he puts Jody to bed. He ushers Jody out of the room, leaving Nathan alone to grieve as the tragic news that his wife and daughter were killed in a car accident with a drunk driver.
Nathan, what's up?
My wife, daughter, they were coming back from my mother's. Truck. Drunk driver. Wrong side of the road. They're dead. Jody, let's get you off to bed. Nathan, stay right here. I'll be right back. Come on, Jody.
At 23 years old, Jody is assigned a mission by the CIA to delete the notorious warlord, Jamal Sheikh Sharif. Ryan warns her that there will be no backup for this operation. In the dead of night, a helicopter hovers at the distance to avoid detection. Jody dives into the water and swims to shore, marking the start of her mission. After suddenly eliminating numerous soldiers, Jody encounters an injured boy named Salim. She uses Aiden to heal him, and despite a language barrier, they manage to introduce themselves. Salim decides to assist Jody in her journey. After various trials and challenges, Jody tells the boy that they must part ways for his safety. Eventually, Jody locates Jamal Sheikh Sharif. She uses Aiden to neutralize all the warlord's security before breaking into the complex to obtain photographic evidence of Jamal's death. However, Salim reappears, distraught and crying for his father, one of the men Aiden had controlled to kill the soldiers and Jamal. In a fit of anger, Salim attempts to shoot Jody. Aiden intervenes by creating a protective shield around her, causing Salim to run out of bullets.
He's your father?
لماذا فعلت ذلك؟ فكرت أنك صديقتي. لقد قتلت أبي، لقد قتلت أبي. أنا أكرهك، أنا أكرهك.
Jody runs outside, only to be surrounded by an enraged mob intent on deleting her. As she tries to find cover, she is shot in the leg. Seeking refuge, she ducks into a house and calls for an extraction. Using Aiden, she heals her leg and pushes down a ladder that she'll climb to reach the ceiling. On the roof, Jody is cornered by the mob, who are screaming at her. Just as she's about to be captured, 3 helicopters appear and soldiers arrive to rescue her. Ryan assists Jody onto one of the helicopters, and as they flee, Jody catches a glimpse of Salim chanting with the mob, possibly inciting them further. During the helicopter ride back to the CIA building in America, Jody learns that her target was not a warlord, but the democratically elected president. Furious and feeling deceived, she confronts Ryan, claiming that she was manipulated into killing an innocent man. Overwhelmed with guilt, she declares that she has blood on her hands and no longer wishes to work for the CIA. In a dramatic move, she jumps off the helicopter. After landing, Jody contacts Nathan and demands that he inform the CIA she's done with working with them. She warns him that if they attempt to follow her, she will delete them.
About you, Jody. You and Aiden, of course. Jody, you okay? Listen, I know this one was tough, but it's over. I'm going home. Just another mission accomplished, right?
I'll never forget what I saw back there, Ryan. Never.
How's your leg?
Better when this painkiller kicks in.
And the international community had just announced its official recognition of the election of the new president, Jamal Sheikh Sharif.
Jamal Sheikh Sharif, one of the most dangerous warlords in the country.
And now, sources report that he and all his government were assassinated in what appears to be an unclaimed attack.
You have to find Jamal and eliminate him.
Hopes were high that the newly recognized President Jamal Sharif would be able to put an end to the hostilities that have ravaged his country for many years. A number of world leaders have already expressed outrage at what appears to be nothing less than a cold-blooded execution.
You have to find Jamal and eliminate him.
لماذا فعلت ذلك؟ فكرت أنك صديقتي.
You lied to me.
What are you talking about?
Jamal wasn't a warlord. He was the president. He was the democratically elected president.
Your point? We're not politicians. We had our orders.
You knew I wouldn't have murdered him. So you lied to me.
Welcome to the CIA, Jody. Not fucking choir practice in case you haven't noticed. Now, we had a job to do, and we did it. End of story.
This might just be a fucking job to you, okay? But I don't go around killing people because some 4-fucking-star general tells me to.
What's going on? Jody, listen, just calm down. All right, we'll get back home and we'll talk about it, okay?
You manipulated. You used me to do your dirty work.
What difference does it make, Jody? You was a dead man walking with or without you.
I have blood on my hands. Some kid lost his father because of me. Because I trusted you. Because I trusted we were doing the right thing. What am I, Ryan? A toy? Some fucking puppet that you can just do whatever you want with?
We're getting massive turbulence.
What?
I can't control it.
Did you also lie to me that night in my apartment?
Jody, for God's sake, you're gonna kill us.
No one's ever gonna lie to me again, Ryan.
Jody! Fuck!
2 years into the future, Jody, now 25, meets Cole in a city park. Both are pleasantly surprised to see each other and spend some time catching up. Cole informs Jody that Nathan is now the executive director of the DPA and is working closely with the military. Jody is taken aback by this revelation, but Cole explains that Nathan's role was more a matter of funding than choice. The conversation then soon turns to Jody's mother. Cole reveals that her mother, Nora Gray, has been residing in a psychiatric hospital since Jody's birth. Jody is determined to see her mother, despite Cole's concerns that Nora might be too mentally unstable to offer any meaningful insights. Jody insists that she needs to see Nora in person, hoping it might help her understand more about herself and Aiden. Cole, understanding her need, agrees to accompany her.
I've got to go see her.
Jody, I know how you feel, but she's in a mental hospital. You might not get the answers you're looking for.
I'm not looking for answers. I just need to see her. I mean, don't you understand? She's my mother. If I look her in the eye, I could find out who I truly am.
Jody, she's in a high-security DPA facility, and you're wanted by every law enforcement agency in the country. You won't be able to walk right in.
Nothing's gonna stop me from seeing her. Look. You've taken a huge risk helping me. Thank you, Cole.
Hey. You didn't think I was gonna let you go alone, did you?
Jody and Cole arrive at St. John's Hospital, a DPA-run psychiatric facility where Nora Gray has been confined for 24 years. As they enter the hospital, Jody uses Aiden to help locate Nora's room. When they find it, Nora is sitting in a chair comatose, staring blankly ahead. Aiden reveals that she has been sedated with drugs that prevent her from regaining consciousness. Before leaving, Aiden shows Jody something else. He links Jody's consciousness with Nora's, allowing them to communicate. Jody reaches out to hug her mother, but realizes she's not truly present. They share a final moment, heartfelt goodbye. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jody begins to cry. You can either choose to use Aiden to end Nora's suffering or leave her alive and exit the room. As Jody opens the door, she finds CIA agents waiting for her. Cole apologizes, and Jody is knocked unconscious with the butt of a gun.
I'm sorry, Jody.
At the CIA headquarters, Jody encounters Nathan, who has become executive director of the DPA. Despite Jody's previous warnings, Nathan has constructed a new, much larger condenser. He tells Jody that the CIA is prepared to let her go and live her life if she completes one last mission for them. In a briefing, Nathan reveals that the military facility in the fictional nation of Kazakhstan has built its own condenser. To prevent this technology from becoming available to others and keep it exclusive to the CIA and its allies, Jody is tasked with destroying the condenser.
Haven't I done enough?
We know another country has discovered the infraworld. They think it's something to be controlled or manipulated. They have no idea what they're dealing with. If entities enter our world, do you know what that would mean, Jody?
What has all this got to do with me?
Because you know the infraworld better than anyone.
It's the CIA's job. And I'm done with that.
They want to offer you a deal. You do this for them, and they let you out, you're free. Jody, do you know what would happen if a passage is open? It'll be the apocalypse. You have the power to stop this.
Desperate to keep the condenser technology exclusive to the CIA and its allies, the agency sends Jody on a mission to destroy a condenser built by a military facility in Kazakhstan. Ryan, along with her old CIA colleagues Vince and Nick, are assigned to her support team, though tensions remain high among them. Traversing snow-covered fields, the team follows a convoy to the facility. Disguised in uniforms of two deceased soldiers, Jody and Ryan manage to infiltrate the base via stolen submarine, only to be captured. They are tortured by General Wang, who demands information from them. If Jody remains silent, Ryan's left eye will be removed. Complicating matters, Aiden is separated from Jody by a confinement field designated to keep entities away from the living. Fortunately, Aiden manages to deactivate the field, unleashing the other entities onto soldiers and freeing Jody and Ryan. Jody dives underwater to place explosives on the condenser, aiming to close the rift. During a confrontation, General Wang is ultimately taken out by the sea entity he created himself. Feeling hopeless when she finds no more submarines left, Jody's despair is lifted when Ryan arrives with a large submarine, saying, "You didn't think I let you down, huh?" They make their escape, but the shockwave from the explosion disables their boosters, forcing them to swim to the surface. Once they're safely out in the water and huddled together, shivering and convinced they might freeze to death, Ryan confesses his love for Jody. She can either accept his confession or refuse him. Eventually, Vince and Nick arrive to rescue them, bringing them back to safety.
Fuck, I hate the cold. Still angry with me?
Yeah, of course I am.
Sorry I behaved like an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
You know, I never had time to tell you this, but I love you, Jody.
Well, this is very romantic. All we need are some candles.
But I wanted you to know, just in case we die here.
Right.
So how about you?
Huh?
Do you love me too?
Yeah. Yeah, I love you, Ryan.
Great.
Kiss me.
I'll see you on the other side.
There! It's them!
We jump back to 9-year-old Jody at the DPA. Cole is tucking her into bed when she asks about Nathan. Cole explains that Nathan, consumed by grief, hasn't left his office in 3 days. Later that night, Jody is awakened by the apparition of Laura, Nathan's late daughter. Laura beckons Jody to follow her to Nathan's office. When Jody enters, she finds Nathan in a state of despair, crying and drinking heavily. In an attempt to comfort him, Jody discovers that she can channel the spirits of the dead through a psychic link, facilitated by physical contact with the living. She channels both Laura and Helen, hoping to console Nathan and help him find some solace. Nathan, overwhelmed with emotion, begs Jody to bring back his loved ones. Despite her efforts, Jody is unable to fulfill his request. After this heartbreaking encounter, she returns to bed, leaving Nathan alone in his anguish. Unbeknownst to both Jody and Nathan at the time, this moment marks the beginning of Nathan's obsession with the Infraworld and sets the stage for his eventual breakdown.
Don't be sad, Daddy.
What did you say?
It was so quick. Mommy couldn't do anything. But it didn't hurt.
Stop it, Jody.
It didn't hurt at all.
You hear me? Stop it right now.
We're here, Nathan. We're right by your side.
Helen. Laura.
We love you, darling. We'll always love you.
Talk to me again. Jody. Make them come back. Make them come back again.
I can't. They've gone.
Please. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. I miss them so much.
We jump to a 25-year-old Jody. The chapter begins with General McGrath discussing both the entities and the Infraworld. He reveals that they have discovered a way to connect these entities to soldiers at will. Jody, clearly disinterested in their approach, leaves the room. Outside, she finds Ryan sitting alone. They talk about the situation in their lives, and Ryan expresses a desire for them to build a new life together. Jody tells him that they need more time to think. Regardless of her decision, Ryan reassures her that he'll be there for her. Their conversation is interrupted when Cole calls Jody, asking her to follow him upstairs. As they ascend, Cole speaks about the difficulty of making choices, with Jody agreeing. He advises her to follow her heart, assuring her that doing so will lead to the right decision. When they reach the destination, Cole reminds Jody to be cautious when speaking with Nathan. Jody nods, knocks on the door, and enters the room. Jody and Nathan reunite, with Nathan clearly relieved and happy to see her safe. They share an emotional hug, and Jody then reminds Nathan that it's now the CIA's turn to uphold their end of the bargain. Nathan hands her an envelope containing a passport and a check for $500,000. As Jody turns to leave, Nathan stops her. He begins to reminisce about the time after his wife and daughter's deaths, revealing that he fell into deep depression and contemplated self-deletion, knowing he could never hold them again. Nathan explains that Jody's arrival made him realize it was me all along. Using a remote control, Nathan reveals a hidden room and admits that he had been studying the Infraworld for the military in hopes of reuniting with his family. He shows Jody a portal to the other world with disoriented, translucent figures appearing. He softly calls out to his wife and daughter's names, confessing that he visits them daily and is working on modifying the portal to allow communication with the Infraworld. Clearly distressed, Jody asks what she has to do with this. Nathan requests her to help to speak with his deceased family. Jody agrees, taking his hands, and with Aiden's assistance is possessed by Helen. Nathan is overjoyed, but Helen speaks through Jody as she begs him to let them go, stating that he's causing them much pain and pleading for them to be allowed to rest in peace. Nathan, unable to accept this, believes Jody is faking the situation. He insists that they want to be with him again. Jody counters that by keeping them between two worlds, he's not allowing them to pass on. Nathan remains in denial, adamantly asserting that he knows they want to return to him. Despite Jody's pleas, Nathan continues to argue, unwilling to accept the truth. Jody offers a simple farewell, hoping he will find peace.
My darling, I missed you so much.
Let us go, Nathan. You're hurting us. You've got to let us go. Let us die!
You're lying. Helen didn't say that, you did.
You're keeping them here. They're being torn apart between two worlds.
That's not true. You're lying. I know they want to be with me again. I know they want to be with me.
Nathan, I know how you feel.
You know nothing about how I feel. You hear me? Nothing.
Goodbye, Nathan. I hope you find peace.
Jody exits Nathan's office, only to be ambushed by the DPA officers who corner her from all directions. She is swiftly knocked out. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself face to face with General McGrath. McGrath greets her coldly, acknowledging that her actions have put them in a difficult position. They can't let her go, but they can't kill her either. He informs her that the only viable solution is to inject her with a neural acid that will put her into a permanent coma, the same fate they impose on her mother. With an unenthusiastic goodbye, Jody, McGrath expresses a false note of gratitude for her help. Jody passes out again. When she wakes up, she is on a rolling bed in a sterile environment and sees Nathan standing nearby. He tells her that she made him see things clearly, and Jody desperately pleads for help. Nathan, however, remains fixated on his goal, discussing his plans to access the Infraworld. Nathan reveals his intention to deactivate the containment field, allowing the Infraworld to merge with their dimension, creating a world where life and death coexist. Jody agrees that it's not just souls on the other side, but death itself that he's dealing with. Nathan insists that she trusts him and that everything will turn out fine, despite her growing sense of dread.
Jody, you opened my eyes. It was so obvious, but I didn't want to see.
Help me, Nathan.
I'm going to accomplish man's oldest dream. Nobody will have to die anymore. No one will ever be separated again.
What are you talking about?
The containment field. I'm going to deactivate it. The Infraworld will spread through our dimension. Life and death, united in one world.
It's not just souls on the other side. It's death.
I've beaten death, Jody. Everything's gonna be just fine. You need to trust me. Everything's gonna turn out fine.
Aiden struggles to break free, but realizes he isn't strong enough on his own. Determined, he decides to seek help from Ryan and Cole. His disturbance alerts them to Jody's predicament. Aiden leads them through the building and down the elevator towards Jody's location. Along the way, they encounter a guard. Cole, lacking the proper credentials, is initially unable to pass. With Aiden's assistance, they modify the database, granting Cole level 4 access. Their journey resumes with further issues, and they eventually arrive at the room where Jody is being held. Once Jody is freed, she explains that Nathan plans to disable the containment field. As she speaks, the field is indeed deactivated, and the three of them make hastily escape towards the designated safe zone. Entities begin to swarm through the building as the evacuation process unfolds, and the scene is filled with chaos and despair. McGrath, despite his earlier actions, hypocritically begs Jody for help, revealing that Nathan has lost his sanity. Jody, outraged, harshly rebuffs him and pushes past to complete her mission. McGrath desperately orders Ryan to assist him in escaping. For the first time, Ryan defies the order, punching McGrath to the ground and resigning his position with a scathing remark. McGrath, now broken and defeated, laments that they are all doomed.
Immediately, Clayton. Agent Clayton, that's an order!
Consider that my resignation.
You're all gonna die here. We're all gonna die.
Jody and the team scramble to find a way to reactivate the containment field. As a last resort, Nathan retrieves a portable containment device, explaining that it should hold long enough to destroy the condenser and close the rip. He warns that it's a risky solution, but their final hope. Ryan is reluctant and suggests that they escape while they still can. Jody grabs a containment belt, and Ryan, though apprehensive, also takes one, remarking that he always figured he'd die a hero. As they enter the elevator, Cole outlines the risks. Ryan inquires about their time frame, and Cole explains that the self-destruct mechanism will activate immediately, leaving no chance for return. The group rushes towards the Black Sun, dodging entities along the way. They witness the devastating power of the souls as military personnel are violently deleted. Jody nearly gets spotted but manages to stay hidden by curling up and making herself small. Despite her efforts, Cole is attacked by the entities. If Jody and Ryan return to help, Aiden heals Cole, but Cole is too injured to continue with them to the Black Sun. The trio fights their way through the ethereal blast emanating from the Black Sun, while the mouthful cries of lost souls from the Infraworld echo around them. Jody becomes separated from Ryan and encounters a distraught Nathan, who is frantically searching for his wife and daughter. Depending on Jody's choices, Nathan either takes his own life or shoots Jody. In either case, Nathan is reunited with his family and instructs Jody to destroy the condenser.
missed you. I missed you so much. You're the only one who can fix this, Jodie. Do it. Do it for me.
Jodie makes her way toward the Black Sun, battling through dangerous entities. As she progresses, she's plagued by haunting memories of her past, meeting Nora in a permanent coma, the tragic death of Salim's father, the harrowing assault attempt by Earl, bullying from the teenagers at a party, and her dad threatening to hit her. These painful moments flash as she transitions through various past versions of herself. When she reaches the lever, she sees Nora crying out for Jodie and her little boy. A doctor arrives with inquiries about the situation, while another doctor explains that Aiden, the twin, died after being strangled by his own umbilical cord. Jodie then finds herself in an empty field where she sees Aiden. She reflects on their shared connection, acknowledging her mixed feelings of love and hate over the years. Despite everything, Aiden was always a part of her. As the sky darkens and the winds pick up, Jodie reaches out to Aiden, but he begins to disintegrate, signaling that their bond might be severed. Overwhelmed with grief, Jodie cries as she stands between two portals. She faces a crucial choice: to embrace death and join Aiden, Nora, Shimisani, and those she loved in the afterlife, or remain alive, leaving Aiden and her past behind.
Another side. Another world. Becoming the wind, the stars, the universe. Being with Aiden and those I've loved forever. Living, feeling, being in love.
Love you, Jodie.
Growing old.
Love you.
So many things I still have to do.
After the Black Sun explodes, both Jodie and Ryan awaken. Ryan, filled with relief, exclaims with Jodie that they made it through. Jodie, however, desperately calls out for Aiden, but there's no response. She calls again, growing more frantic, but the silence is unyielding. Overcome with grief, she collapses to the ground, tears streaming down her face. Ryan, seeing Jodie in anguish, moves to her side and embraces her. He holds her tightly, trying to comfort her and alleviate her pain as she cries.
We made it. Jodie, we made it.
Aiden?
If Jodie chose life during the previous episodes, she returns to life and is shown living in a small cabin in Alaska. 3 months after the destruction of the Black Sun, Aiden's separation from Jodie has started to erode her memories. To preserve what remains of her past, she writes down her entire life on paper, beginning the storytelling of the game. Despite her efforts to move on, Jodie remains heartbroken over Aiden. She cries every night, reflecting on how, despite both of them wanting to be free of their tether, she never felt more miserable. Jodie can choose to stay alone or live with Tuesday, Zoe, Jay, or Ryan. In the alone ending, after discussing with Ryan that she can't envision a future with him, Jodie returns to her drifter lifestyle. She acknowledges that entities are a part of the world and that they can't lead a normal life. Sitting in a motel room, she watches TV and is startled when the lights and TV flicker. Aiden writes on the screen, "Still here." indicating that he's still watching over her. Despite their separation, Jodie is overjoyed and warmly greets the message. As she monologues about her situation, the scene cuts to entities flooding around the human world. Jodie is seen alone preparing for battle, presumably with Aiden, and visibly accompanying her.
How could I live a normal life again after all I've been through? Hell, who wants to live a normal life anyway? A boyfriend, a job, counting the days till my next vacation. I wanted it for so long, but I finally realized that that life wasn't for me. So I took to the road. I've seen many rifts to the other side, hundreds of them all over the country. Homes where strange things happen, motel rooms that no one ever wants to sleep in again. Entities are all around us. They live in our houses, sleep in our beds. They're with us every second of every day. I know they're lurking in the shadows.
You don't know how much I've missed you.
I see things at night. Terrifying things. I tell myself it's only nightmares, but I know it's not true. Once Pandora's box is open, it can never be closed again. No. It's not nightmares. It's what is about to happen. I've died twice already. I'm not afraid of death anymore.
In the Zoe ending, after discussing with Ryan that she can't see a future with him, Jodie returns to her homeless friend's new apartment. They greet her with surprise and joy. Jodie meets a young Zoe who instantly accepts her as though she has always been a part of her life, suggesting that Zoe might also have psychic abilities. As Jodie reflects on the situation, the scene cuts to entities flooding the human world. Jodie and an older Zoe are shown preparing for battle, ready to face an impending threat together.
They took me in when I was alone. When all I could think of was dying. They shared the little they had without knowing me or judging me. Deep down, I knew that my place was there, with them. Stan does odd jobs here and there. Jimmy's gone back to school. He's clean now. Tuesday works behind a bar, and Walter looks after little Zoe. They're not rolling in money, but they manage. I never told them about my past, and they never asked. They love me for who I am. Just some weird chick who talks to spirits. Zoe took to me like we'd always known each other. There's something about her big, sad eyes that reminds me of the little girl I once was. knew she was different from the moment I saw her. We haven't talked about it, but we both know we have something in common. I see things at night. Terrifying things. I tell myself it's only nightmares, but I know it's not true. The only one who can save the world is a little girl. I have to prepare her. I know I don't have much time. Once Pandora's box is open, it can never be closed again. No. It's not nightmares. It's what is about to happen.
In the Jay ending, after telling Ryan she can't see a future with him, Jody decides to visit Jay and Corey's house once more, arriving on the motorbike they gave her. After a night of intimacy with Jay, Jody wakes up crying. She's comforted when Aiden writes "still here" on the mirror, reassuring her that he still is watching over her, even though they are no longer connected. As Jody finds solace in Aiden's presence, the scene once again shifts to the entities flooding over the human world. Jody is shown alone preparing for battle, ready to confront the looming threat, just like the other endings.
I see things at night. Terrifying things. I tell myself it's only nightmares, but I know it's not true. Once Pandora's box is open, it can never be closed again. No. It's not nightmares. It's what is about to happen. I've died twice already. I'm not afraid of death anymore.
In the Ryan ending, after deciding that a future with Ryan is her only real choice, Jody and Ryan attempt to escape their past and start anew on a remote island. They work to create a normal life, deliberately ignoring the traumatic events they've endured. As Ryan starts a fire on the beach, Jody walks along the shore, feeling the absence of Aiden deeply. Suddenly, a coconut rolls to Jody's feet, and the writing begins to form on the sand, "Still here." indicating that Aiden is still watching over her, even though they are no longer connected. Overjoyed, Jodie lies down on the beach and she hears the garbled words, "I love you," from Aiden. As Jodie reflects on her nightmares and ongoing struggles, the scene shifts once again to the entities flooding the human world, when Jodie preparing for battle, just like the other endings.
It took me a while to realize how much I loved Ryan. I'd been alone and sad for so long. I'd forgotten what it was like to love someone. We traveled as far away as we could. I had to learn to love again. To put my trust in someone, to stop fighting and running away. In short, I had to learn to live. Ryan and I never talked about it again. As if it all never happened. As if the other side didn't exist. As if it could never come back into our lives. See things at night. Terrifying things. I tell myself it's only nightmares, but I know it's not true. Once Pandora's box is open, it can never be closed again. No. It's not nightmares. It's what is about to happen. I've died twice already. I'm not afraid of death anymore.
Now, in the Beyond ending, Jodie chooses to enter the ethereal realm, an infinite space where she could become anything she desires. She describes it as a balance and expanse that has only just begun to explore. Aiden is also present in the Infraworld, but Jodie does not mention him. At one point, his spirit is briefly visible. Meanwhile, the human world, Ryan discovers Jodie's lifeless body and desperately pleads for her to wake up from the Infraworld. Jodie visits the people she's cared about. She observes Ryan at his home, but remains unseen by him. She also makes her presence known to Cole if he is still alive, leaving a faint message on his computer: "Little princess is still here." The scene then shifts to Zoe, who was alone in her apartment, where Tuesday, Stan, and potentially Walter and Jimmy watch television. It's implied that Jodie has linked herself to Zoe, although she is not confined to her. Jodie can now perceive faraway places beyond Aiden's previous reach. She advises Zoe not to reveal their connection and not to fear the monsters that come out at night. Jodie also shares her memories with Zoe to help prepare her for the future. In Zoe's nightmare, she reflects on how the voice is preparing her for what lies ahead. The final scene shows Zoe from a cliff gazing at a rift as entities begin to wreak havoc on the world, contemplating that she will never be alone again.
Jodie! Jodie! Jodie, come here, wake up. Jodie, wake. Jodie, wake up. Jodie, wake up. Jodie. Jodie. Jodie, wait. No. No. Jodie, wake up.
There's a world out here. A whole universe of forests and lakes and mountains and rivers. It's all around us. You just have to listen carefully to hear its whisper. Neither heaven nor hell. There's no God or devil. Just a place where we continue to exist after we die. My soul explores it endlessly, and I've still only seen a fragment of it. I can be everywhere and nowhere. I can dissolve into nothing or become whole again. I can merge my soul with others or be more alone than any human being has ever been. All this is possible merely by the force of my will. I continue to look through to your world. I watch over those I love. I'd like them to know I'm there, that I'm okay. To hold them in my arms one more time, tell them how much I miss them. But I have to settle for being close by. Invisible. Transparent. No more than a fading memory. I know what has been and what is yet to be. I know all the possibilities. I can see the darkness coming. I must stay a while longer. There is still a part to play before I can leave to discover what lies beyond.
Sometimes, I can spend hours staring into space, watching the images as they go by. They play over and over again, like a TV that's never turned off. I don't know why I'm seeing all this, but there's one thing I do know. It all really happened. When I'm alone, I listen to the voice inside my head. She talks to me. She says there are things I need to know. Sometimes I shut my eyes and it's as if I could fly. I can go through walls. I see beautiful colors around people, and I discover faraway places without ever leaving my room. The voice told me not to tell anyone. I'm really scared. Especially at night when I'm alone with the shadows. There are things moving in the darkness. Strange noises. Whispers in the dark. The voice says it's nothing. That it'll all go away. But she won't tell me what these things are. And I'm too scared to ask. I often have the same dream. Everything seems so real. Sounds, the smells, the light. Deep down, I know it's not just a dream. It's like an echo of things to come. I must get ready. I know there's not much time. There's only one thing I can be sure of. I will never be alone again.
Beyond Two Souls delves into the themes of choice, death, and grief, echoing David Cage's intent to explore these profound concepts. Earlier in this video, I mentioned how Cage wanted to create a game that reflects on life, death, and grief, and we can see these themes vividly throughout the characters, endings, and various chapters. One recurring theme is the difficulty of letting go. Jodie experiences intense pain whenever Aiden moves too far away or leaves her, describing it as feeling like hell. This can be seen as a metaphor for the struggle of letting go in general. Think of a young child going to school for the first time, having to separate from their parents. It feels almost as if they are tethered to them. Nathan's infatuation with the infraworld, the realm of spirits, exemplifies this struggle. He cannot let go of his deceased loved ones and resorts to building a machine to channel their spirits, highlighting his inability to move on. In the Navajo chapter, the family has grown complacent with their situation, living in denial. Shimasani, the mother, holds the key to ending their plight, but even then her family faces the difficult task of letting her go. Another poignant moment is when Jody encounters her mother, Nora. The player is given the choice to either walk away or end Nora's suffering. If the player chooses to let Nora die, it symbolizes the act of letting go. This parallels Nathan's journey with his family. As the old saying goes, if you love something, set it free. Both Nathan and Jody must learn to release their loved ones. What really stands out in this game is the connection between Jody and Aiden. This profoundly shapes her understanding of life and death, providing her with a constant, albeit invisible, companion who bridges the gap between the living world and the afterlife. Aiden, revealed to be Jody's stillborn twin brother, remains tethered to her throughout her life, offering protection and companionship, but also complicating her interactions with the world around her. This connection allows Jody to experience the presence of the infraworld, a realm that represents the afterlife, and interact with spirits, giving her a unique perspective on death as a continuation rather than an end. Through Aiden, Jody learns that death is not a finality, but a transition to another form of existence. This understanding is reinforced by her experiences with the infraworld, where she encounters entities and spirits, including those of Stan's late wife, Nancy. Her ability to channel spirits and communicate with the dead highlights the preamble boundary between life and death, suggesting that the two are interconnected rather than separate states. This connection shapes Jody's worldwide view, making her more attuned to the spiritual dimensions of existence and the ongoing presence of those who have passed. Jody's relationship with Aiden also reflects a nature versus nurture theme, as her inherent psychic abilities influence her despite the nurturing she receives from those around her. The loss of her biological mother and the absence of a traditional family structure forced Jody to rely on Aiden as a surrogate family member. This dynamic underscores the tension between her natural abilities, which set her apart, and her desire for normalcy and human connection. Her journey becomes one of reconciling aspects of her identity, ultimately leading to a deeper understanding of herself and the world beyond. Through her connection with Aiden, Jody navigates the complexities of life, death, and grief, emerging as a character who embodies the resilience and self-acceptance in the face of extraordinary circumstances. Now, let's talk about the characters of the game. While there's a surplus, I will only be talking about the most important ones. First, let's look at the star of the show, Jody. She is an interesting character whose journey explores themes of life, death, and grief through her unique connection with the entity Aiden. From a young age, Jody is aware of her psychic bond with Aiden, which allows her to interact with the world in extraordinary ways, such as communicating with spirits and manipulating objects. This connection, while granting her remarkable abilities, also isolates her from others, marking her as different and leading to a life of constant struggle and self-discovery. Her story is one of navigating the challenges of her dual existence, living in the physical world while being tethered to the spiritual realm through Aiden. The theme of death is intricately woven into Jody's narrative, not only through her ability to communicate with the dead, but also the loss she experiences. Her journey is marked by grief, from the death of Nathan Dawkins' family, which she witnesses and channels to her own struggles with the concept of morality. Jody's ability to connect with the infraworld, a realm of the dead, forces her to confront the realities of life and death more directly than most. This confrontation shapes her understanding of her own identity and the world around her, making her story a poignant exploration of what it means to live with the constant presence of death. Jody's life also reflects the theme of nature versus nurture, particularly in how relationships or lack thereof impact her development. Raised by foster parents who ultimately leave her in their care for sciences, Jody's formative years are spent under the watchful eyes of Nathan Dawkins and Cole Freeman. These relationships are crucial in shaping her understanding of trust, love, and independence. Despite the nurturing she receives from Nathan and Cole, Jody's innate connection with Aiden in the supernatural world often places her at odds with her desire for a normal life. This tension highlights the struggle between her inherent nature, defined by her bond with Aiden, and the nurturing she receives from those around her. Jodie's story is a compelling narrative of resilience and self-acceptance. Her journey through life, marked by the extraordinary burden of her abilities and the grief of losing those close to her, is a testament to her strength and courage. As she learns to navigate the complexities of her existence, Jodie embodies the struggle of accepting one's identity in the face of societal expectations and personal loss. Her character is a powerful exploration of the human condition, capturing the essence of what it means to live, love, and endure in a world that often feels alien and unforgiving. Now, moving on to Aiden, who as a character serves as a pivotal element in exploring the themes of life and death. He's a supernatural entity eternally linked to Jodie, and his presence is integral to both the gameplay and the narrative. Aiden's abilities include telekinesis, possession, and healing, which he uses to protect Jodie and assist her in navigating the challenges she faces throughout her life. This connection between Jodie and Aiden is revealed to be deeply personal, as Aiden is actually Jodie's twin brother who died at birth. This revelation adds a layer of complexity to their relationship, emphasizing the theme of death by illustrating how Aiden's spirit continues to exist and influence the living world through Jodie. Aiden's role in the narrative is multifaceted. He acts as both a protector and a source of conflict for Jodie. While he helps her in many situations, his actions can sometimes be at odds with her desires, reflecting a sibling-like dynamic filled with both love and tension. This dynamic allows the game to explore the boundary between life and death, as Aiden's presence blurs the line between the two. His ability to interact with the physical world and communicate with other spirits provides Jodie, by an extension the player, with a unique perspective on morality and the afterlife. Thematically, Aiden's existence challenges the conventional understanding of death as an endpoint. Instead, he represents the idea that death is a transition to another state of being, where connections with the living can persist. This ongoing bond between Jodie and Aiden underscores the narrative exploration of grief and loss, as Jodie navigates a world where she is constantly reminded of the presence of her deceased brother. Their relationship is a testament to the enduring nature of familiar bonds and even beyond death, and it invites players to reflect their own perspectives of life, death, and what lies beyond. Now, Nathan Dawkins is a complex character serving as both mentor and father figure to Jodie Holmes. His character arc is deeply entwined with the theme of grief, as he grapples with the tragic loss of his wife and daughter in a car accident to a drunk driver. This loss profoundly affects Nathan, pushing him through the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Initially, Nathan is in denial about his family's death, which transitions into anger and a desperate need to reconnect with them. This desperation leads him to the bargaining phase, where he becomes obsessed with using the game's supernatural elements to bring his family back, even if it means causing harm to others. It's even shown in the game when Nathan confesses after he lost his family, he was in a state of depression. Nathan's inability to move on past the bargaining phase is highlighted when Jodie channels his late family, allowing him to communicate with them. Instead of finding closure, Nathan becomes further entrenched in his obsession, refusing to accept their deaths. This fixation eventually leads him to make morally questionable decisions, such as attempting to merge the realms of the living and the dead, which positions him as a sympathetic villain in the narrative. His actions are driven by grief and love, making him a tragic figure rather than a traditional antagonist. Nathan's story illustrates how unresolved grief can lead to destructive behavior, blurring the lines between right and wrong. Throughout the game, Nathan's detachment from reality is evident in his interactions with Jodie. He is so consumed by his own grief that he becomes out of touch with the world around him, exemplified in his gift of an ancient book of Edgar Allan Poe poems to Jodie, which leads to her being ridiculed by her peers. This moment underscores Nathan's discomfort from normalcy and his inability to understand the needs of a teenage girl. Ultimately, Nathan's journey concludes with his acceptance of his family's death, symbolized by his decision to take his own life. This act is a final acceptance of reality, releasing him from the cycle of grief that has consumed him. Nathan Dawkins' character arc is a poignant exploration of the devastating impact of loss and the struggle to find peace amidst overwhelming sorrow.
I missed you so much.
Now that we spoke on the most important characters, we need to quickly analyze the ending. Although the game gives you different ways to make it end, it's always the same. Before I jump into analyzing the ending though, let's talk about the condenser and the infraworld. These two elements play crucial roles in the narrative, serving as metaphors for the theme of life and death. The condenser is a device that creates a portal to the infraworld, a realm where spirits reside, representing the afterlife. This connection between the physical world and the infraworld allows for the exploration of what lies beyond death, a central theme of the game. The condenser's purpose is to study and harness the power of the infraworld, but it also symbolizes humanity's desire to control and understand the unknown aspects of existence, particularly death. The consequences of tampering with such forces are dire, as the condenser's malfunction threatens to merge the two worlds, unleashing chaos and destruction. This narrative arc reflects the dangers of overstepping natural boundaries with the hubris of trying to dominate what should remain beyond human control. The infraworld itself is depicted as a mysterious and often dangerous place inhabited by spirits and entities that Jodie can interact with through her connection with Aiden. This realm represents the unknown aspects of death and the afterlife, challenging characters and players to confront their fears and beliefs about morality. Through Jodie's journey, the game explores the idea that death is not an end but a transition to another state of being, where the connections with living can persist. Now that we understand why the two are important, let's check out the ending, where the entities are shown flooding the human world with Jodie preparing for battle, which represents a significant turning point and sets the stage for what can be considered a prelude to future events in Jodie's story. This moment underscores the game's exploration of the boundaries between life and death, as the infraworld, an ethereal realm of spirits, begins to encroach upon the physical world. Jodie's preparation for battle, presumably with Aiden's invisibility accompanying her, symbolizes her acceptance of her role as a bridge between these two realms. This scene can be seen as a metaphor for Jodie's ongoing struggle to balance her connection with the spiritual world and her existence in the human world. Throughout the game, Jodie has been caught between these two realities, with Aiden representing her link to the infraworld. The flooding of entities into the human realm signifies the breaking of the barriers and the potential chaos that can ensue when the natural orders are disrupted. Jodie's readiness to comfort this threat highlights her growth and determination to protect the world from the dangers posed by the infraworld. Thematically, this ending suggests that Jodie's journey is far from over and hints at a larger conflict that she may face in the future, where her unique abilities and experiences will be crucial in addressing the challenges posed by merging the two worlds. This open-ended conclusion leaves room for further exploration of Jodie's character and the consequences of her choices, effectively setting up a narrative that can continue beyond the events of Beyond Two Souls. This scene encapsulates the game's central themes of life, death, and the interconnectedness of all things, inviting players to ponder the implications of Jodie's ongoing journey. Beyond Two Souls is an action-adventure game that combines interactive storytelling with cinematic gameplay, much like its predecessors Fahrenheit and Heavy Rain. Players primarily control Jodie Holmes, portrayed by Elliot Page, who possesses supernatural abilities through her psychic link with an entity named Aiden. The gameplay allows players to switch between controlling Jodie and Aiden, each offering unique interactions. Jodie navigates the physical world, interacting with objects and characters, while Aiden, existing in a monochromatic realm, can move through walls and manipulate objects and people with certain radius around Jodie. This mechanic adds a layer of complexity and variety to the gameplay, as Aiden can explore areas inaccessible to Jodie, interact with objects, and influence other characters. This dual perspective enhances the narrative by providing different ways to approach and resolve situations. The narrative structure of Beyond Two Souls is non-linear, spanning 15 years of Jodie's life from adolescence to adulthood. This contrasts with the more linear storytelling of Heavy Rain, where the narrative unfolds in a more chronological order. The non-linear approach in Beyond Two Souls allows for a deeper exploration of Jodie's character and the themes of life and death, although it has been critiqued for sometimes leading to a loss of narrative momentum. This structure reflects Jodie's fragmented memories and allows players to experience key moments in her life out of chronological order. The game emphasizes choice and consequence where player decisions can alter the course of the story and the fate of non-playable characters. However, some critics have noted that the impact of these choices is limited, leading to a sense of illusion of influence, where the narrative remains largely predetermined despite player input. Additionally, the game features QuickTime Events, or QTEs for short, during action sequences where players must respond to on-screen prompts to progress through combat and chase scenes. This mechanic is designed to maintain the cinematic feel of the game while keeping players engaged. In this game, the implementation of QTEs differs significantly from previous Quantic Dream games like Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy. In earlier titles, QTEs were heavily relied upon to stimulate a wide range of actions, often requiring precise timing and quick reflexes. These events were integral to the gameplay, offering a sense of challenge and urgency. One of the most significant differences is the game's approach to QuickTime events. Unlike previous Quantic Dream games, Beyond Two Souls often relies on the character body movement to indicate the correct direction for players to press, rather than explicit on-screen prompts. This design choice aims to maintain immersion by keeping the screen clear of HUD elements, although it can sometimes lead to confusion and misinterpretation of the required actions. Additionally, the game offers different difficulty options to tailor to the QTEs of the player's skill level, making it more accessible to a wider audience. In this, however, the approach of QTEs is simplified. The game reduces the complexity of interactions by focusing more on narrative flow than challenging gameplay mechanics. Players are often required to push the control stick in the direction Jodie is moving during slow motion action sequences, which can sometimes be unclear and lead to confusion about the correct input. This simplification was intended to create a more cinematic experience, allowing players to inhabit the protagonist's entire body rather than just their hands. The game also attempts to minimize on-screen prompts to address criticisms of QTEs in previous games, but this can sometimes result in a lack of clarity about what actions are required. While this design choice aims to enhance immersion, it may detract from the sense of agency and challenge that players experience in earlier Quantic Dream titles. In terms of unlockables, the game offers various endings based on the choices players make throughout Jodie's journey. These endings reflect the consequences of her decisions, particularly in relation to her connection with Aiden and her interactions with other characters. The game encourages players to explore different narrative paths, providing replay value as they uncover alternative outcomes and storylines. Additionally, players can unlock various collectibles and bonus content by completing specific objectives or achieving milestones within the game. These may include character insights, additional dialogue, behind-the-scenes features that provide a deeper understanding of the game's development and themes. This game also offers a chapter select feature, allowing players to revisit specific segments of the story to explore different choices and their consequences. Overall, Beyond Two Souls builds on the narrative and interactive foundations of Quantic Dream's earlier titles. It distinguishes itself through innovative gameplay mechanics and narrative structure. These elements contribute to a unique gaming experience that challenges traditional definitions of video games and cinematic storytelling. Beyond Two Souls was released for the PlayStation 3 on October 8, 2013 in North America. The PS3 version of the game is notable for its cinematic approach, blending interactive storytelling with action-adventure gameplay. The game featured a unique dual character control system, allowing players to switch between Jodie Holmes and the incorporeal entity Aiden. This mechanic provided diverse gameplay experiences as Jodie interacted with the physical world while Aiden could manipulate objects, possess characters, and explore areas accessible to Jodie. The game also introduced a non-linear narrative structure, presenting Jodie's life in a series of outer order chapters, which encourages players to piece together their story through exploration and decision-making. Another notable feature was the dual mode, which enabled players to control Jodie and Aiden using smartphones or tablets, or by altering between two controllers. This co-op mode added a collaborative element to the gameplay, although it restricted play to one character at a time. The game also included QuickTime events during action sequences, requiring players to respond to on-screen prompts to progress through combat chase scenes. Beyond Two Souls was released for the PlayStation 4 on November 24, 2015. This version of the game introduced several enhancements and additional content that differentiated it from the original PlayStation 3 release. The PS4 port featured improved graphics, including enhanced lighting and shadows, which took advantage of a more powerful hardware to deliver a more visually stunning experience. The game also ran at a higher resolution and frame rate, providing smoother gameplay and a more immersive visual presentation. One of the notable additions in the PS4 version was the inclusion of a remix mode, which allowed players to experience the story in chronological order. This provided a new perspective on Jodie Holmes' journey, and the original game presented her in a non-linear fashion. The PS4 version also included the Advanced Experiments DLC, offering additional gameplay content that expanded on the main story. Overall, the PS port of Beyond Two Souls was designed to enhance the original experience with technical improvements and new content, making it an attractive option for both newcomers and fans of the original game. These enhancements help solidify the game's reputation as a unique narrative-driven experience within the action-adventure genre. Now, what shocked me was the PC port. Beyond Two Souls was released for PC on July 22, 2019. The PC port of the game brought several enhancements and features that distinguished it from earlier console versions. One of the key improvements was the support for 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, which provided a more visually impressive and smoother gameplay experience compared to the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 versions. This enhancement took advantage of the superior hardware capabilities of the PC, offering players a more immersive visual experience. Additionally, the PC version included all previous release downloadable content such as the Advanced Experiments DLC, which added extra gameplay challenges and content. The game also featured improved graphics settings, allowing players to customize visual aspects such as shadows, textures, and anti-aliasing to suit their preference and hardware capabilities. The PC port maintained the core gameplay mechanic of the original, including the dual character control system where players switch between Jodie Holmes and Entity Iden, as well as the non-linear narrative structure that presents Jodie's life out of chronological order. These elements combined with the enhanced graphics and performance made the PC version of Beyond Two Souls an attractive option for both newcomers and fans of the original game looking to experience with improved visuals and performance. What I like is you can't go wrong with any port of the game because you always get the original experience. While making this video, I was shocked to see the mixed bag of how gamers and critics of Quantic Dream fans observe the game. Let's start with the critical reception. Upon its release with reviews ranging from high praises to significant criticism, the game holds a mixed score on Metacritic with ratings of 70 out of 100 for PS3 and 72 out of 100 for PS4, and also 76 out of 100 for PC, indicating a generally average reception overall. Critics praised the performances of the lead actors, particularly Elliot Page as Jodie Holmes and Willem Dafoe as Nathan Dawkins. The game's technical achievements, including an elaborate motion capture and impressive graphics, were also highlighted. For instance, PlayStation Official Magazine noted that the game showcased PS3 graphical high point and described Page's performance as astonishing. However, the game faced criticism for its narrative structure and writing. Many reviewers felt that while the game was visually stunning, it lacked depth in its plot and character development. Polygon pointed out the writing flaws, despite acknowledging Quantic Dream's innovative storytelling approach. Similarly, IGN criticized the game for making players feel like passive participants, stating that the choices felt superficial. Some reviewers emphasized the game's emotional impact and its ability to appeal to non-gamers, with GameSpot describing it as a gripping adventure that allows players to shape Jodie's character through her choices. In contrast, others like Metro Game Central felt that the plot was underwritten and the gameplay mechanics were lacking. Some of the common criticisms was the narrative structure, gameplay, identity crisis, and even character interaction. Many critics pointed out the issues with the game's narrative structure and writing. The non-linear storytelling, while ambitious, was seen as disjointed and sometimes confusing, leading to a loss of narrative momentum. The plot was criticized for being underwritten, with some reviews describing it as dopey or lacking depth, and the character development was seen as inconsistent. The game was critiqued for its limited gameplay mechanics and the feeling of being a passive participant. Critics noted that the reliance on quick-time events and predetermined outcomes hindered player agency and immersion. The choices presented to players felt inconsequential, failing to deliver impactful consequences that could deepen the emotional resonance of the story. Beyond Two Souls was described as a grappling with an identity crisis, straddling the line between traditional video game and the cinematic adventure. This blend of gaming and storytelling created a unique experience, but also led to confusion about what the game was trying to be, resulting in a lack of cohesion between gameplay and narrative. Some reviews criticized the lack of a solid character interaction and the plot's believability, describing it as unintentionally silly at times. This detracted from the overall storytelling experience, leaving players with an unmet expectations and sense of missed opportunities. But these were how critics felt of the game. So we asked ourselves, how did the audience feel about the game? The audience's reception of Beyond Two Souls was generally more positive than that of critics, with many players appreciating the game's unique approach to storytelling and its emotional depth. The involvement of high-profile actors added a cinematic quality that resonated with players, enhancing the game's narrative appeal. The game's sales figures reflect this positive reception, as it sold 2.8 million copies by July 2018, making it one of the best-selling PlayStation 3 titles. Players often praise the game's graphics, motion capture, and the emotional performances of the actors, which help create a compelling narrative experience. Many appreciate the game's ability to appeal to non-gamers, as it offered a story-driven experience that was accessible and engaging. The dual character mechanic, allowing players to control both Jodie and Aiden, provided a unique gameplay experience that intrigued many players. However, some players shared similar criticism with critics regarding the game's narrative structure and limited player agency. The non-linear storytelling and reliance on quick-time events were points of contention, as they sometimes led to confusion and a sense of passivity in gameplay. Despite these criticisms, the game's emotional impact and innovative approach to interactive storytelling were generally well received by the audience, contributing to commercial success. The general public's perception of the visuals and graphics in Beyond Two Souls was largely positive. Players were impressed by the game's graphical fidelity, which was considered a significant achievement for the PlayStation 3 hardware. Quantic Dream, known for pushing the boundaries of visual presentation, delivered a game that was visually stunning, with highly detailed character models and environments. The facial animations, in particular, were praised for their realism, surpassing expectations set by previous games of the same generation, such as LA Noire. Stay tuned for next year, that might be coming out. This game's extensive color palette and diverse locations ranging from snowy military installations to vast desert landscapes were also highlighted as strengths. These elements contribute to an immersive experience, allowing players to engage with the story in a visually captivating way. The performances were enhanced by the high-quality motion capture and digital makeup, which effectively conveyed the characters' emotions and personalities across different stages of Jodie's life. No matter if it was a critic or a common gamer, this game still sounds like a success. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't share the same thoughts as critics when it comes to the game, but at the same time, I can say it's not perfect either. One area where the game falls short is its handling of Aiden's powers. Aiden has immense power, capable of choking and eliminating people, but his abilities are inconsistently applied. For example, we see Aiden sneaking up on Ryan during the capture the flag training session, but when Jodie gets knocked out or caught off guard, Aiden is inexplicably absent. It would have been beneficial if the game had better explained the limitations of Aiden's abilities. While that's a downside, a positive aspect is the fragmented narrative structure. Personally, I like the sporadic narrative approach. It kept me curious and engaged, even though I initially found it conflicting. Some chapters were a lot of fun, but the downside is that only a handful of them significantly impacted the main story. For instance, Jodie's first CIA mission to steal documents feels disconnected from the overall plot. The narrative scattered nature can be both a strength and a weakness, leaving us with questions that have no answers. I understand that this reason is because Jodie is lost in her own memories, trying to piece together what she can at that moment in time. What's interesting is how the story uses a common movie trope. We see our protagonists at the end of their journey as players were working to reach that point, knowing the ending is already set in stone. Some events don't feel consequential. Characters might die, lose an eye, or extend their lives, but the ultimate ending is still determined by our decisions. Another game that used this trope was the first God of War, where we're building up to Kratos' fall. And Beyond Two Souls, we're building up to Jodie's decision. The game succeeds by allowing us to choose Jodie's fate regardless of the chaos that unfolds in the episodes. Who she ends up with, if anyone, is up to us. Comparing this to Heavy Rain, a game where every action, trial, and word had consequences that built a story, Beyond Two Souls doesn't measure up in terms of impactful choices. However, I still enjoyed it. The characters, emotional beats, music, and scenery were all highlights. The game is aesthetically pleasing and the performances are excellent. While the story isn't perfect, it is still engaging. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give this game either a 7.5 or 8. It's not perfect, but it's still a good time. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all our latest uploads. If you have any retrospective requests or suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.